what advice you would give to young diplomats?
A good number of candidates have made up their mind to join foreign service. Today, if they are going to join, we are fifth largest economy in the world, soon to be third largest. Many Indians leave India hoping that the rest of the world will work perfectly. It does not so. It does not happen like that. Coming from Bihar, I had seen the political turbulence that was happening. India should be called United States of India. It will become soon. India is a civilization which gives huge attraction to outsiders. Outsiders means outside India. We're very keen to go to US through Central America, Mexico, and crossing the border.
Donkey.
You can say that. Absolutely, absolutely.
दुनिया की हर चीज ठोकर खाने से टूट जाती है, बस एक कामयाबी ही है जो सिर्फ ठोकर खाने से ही मिलती है. Hello everyone, my name is Nikita and welcome to Unacademy, where your dreams transform into reality. In today's podcast, we will take a deep dive into diplomacy. We'll decode the complexities of a world from geopolitics to cultural diplomacy in a full-fledged conversation with our guest. So, buckle up learners as we embark on this amazing ride towards your civil services aspirations. So, we have with us Yogeshwar Varma sir. So, welcome to Unacademy.
Thank you.
I'm so honored to have you here on this podcast today. So, sir, first of all, tell me your inspiration to many, but who inspired you to become an IFS officer?
Nikita, nice to be here in your studio. I cannot say that there was any particular person for my inspiration. I wanted to join a professional service. Some of the things historically happened. I was pursuing BSc Physics Honours in Patna Science College, 73-75, when JP movement came in and universities shut down. So I was just relaxing at my home and I came to know that there is a service which only requires 10+2, which is a special class railway apprenticeship, SCRA. Indian Railways used to recruit boys about 15, 20 through all India, through UPSC after 12. And then after 4 years of in-house captive training in their own Indian Railway Engineering College in Jamalpur, which is known popularly as Jamalpur Gymkhana, you join as Class 1 officer in Indian Railways in the service called Indian Railway Service of Mechanical Engineers. So I found it not bad and I appeared, I made it and then I joined. Nobody leaves Class 1 service. So then I realized that it is mostly about staying within the Indian Railways, and I came to know also that a few of my earlier senior colleagues, they had appeared in civil services and made it into IAS. None from Jamalpur Gymkhana in foreign service, but IAS was there, so I realized if they can make it, I can also try, and I did try. And coming from Bihar, I had seen the political turbulence that was happening, not just during the JP movement, also before and after. And I realized that politicians or the political leadership in the country or in the state, with whom Indian administrative services have to deal with it, is not my cup of tea. And I then felt that I can go around the world, see and serve as an Indian diplomat in 1980. And that was a very good decision on my part. I must say I have no regrets.
So, sir, backstage you were mentioning that you were into the first batch.
Yes, 1979, Kothari Commission came and they wanted to bring in lots of engineers and doctors and all professional classes, and it was allowed in 1979 onwards. So I appeared in that. Although I didn't take engineering courses for my IAS exam, because we also have a degree from British Council of Engineering Institutions, like a BTech degree. It's a compulsory while you are in the railways during the 4 years.
Okay.
You have to have a degree and then you are absorbed as a, or you are started as a class 1 service in the Indian Railway Service of Mechanical Engineers. So when I came to IAS decision, Kothari Commission, I chose history and public administration, 2 subjects as one has to take, management and public administration. And I found that quite not so difficult and easy to go through. And I made it. And once I came in foreign service, I was happy in the sense that I started my career of another 35 years, which I have completed 8-9 years ago. 2015, I retired with no regrets.
So how has been these years? Like exciting?
Absolutely.
Or thrilling?
Very thrilling, I would say. You have seen the world. You have met and made so many friends all over the country, all over the world. And you come to know that many people are like us. You know, they are also going through similar challenges, similar struggles. And once you see all over the world, then you realize that we are not that bad and we are doing pretty well. And this is one of the important tasks that very often when you are abroad, you are asked about India. You know, like this interview, I've done many in most countries, because India is a civilization which gives huge attraction to outsiders. Outsiders means outside India. People just don't understand. Very difficult to explain how a country of this size, population, diversity and complexity still functions. And the beauty is that we have a well-established democracy and open society with all good institutions, media, judiciary, everything functioning. Of course, we will take our time to reach what our Prime Minister is talking of, Viksit Bharat by 2047, 100 years, which is a good time for any country to mature. And this is what I find that the rest of the world has now found, that India has a lot of hidden talents, resources, plenty of experiences which can be shared with the rest of the world.
Of course, definitely. So, sir, as a former UPSC board member, what advice you would, like, what essential qualities one aspirant should have when, when they want to pursue this IFS? हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू अनअकैडमी। मैं हूं अनअकैडमी के ORN सेंटर में। यहाँ पे यूपीएससी के टॉप फैकल्टी हैं और लर्नर का फीडबैक भी बहुत अच्छा है। नया बैच 29 मार्च को स्टार्ट होने वाला है, तो आप सेंटर विजिट कर सकते हैं इंक्वायरी के लिए। हिंदी मीडियम स्टूडेंट्स के लिए अनअकैडमी का सेंटर मुखर्जी नगर में भी है। नया बैच 27 मार्च को शुरू हो रहा है, वहाँ पे भी आप इंक्वायरी के लिए विजिट कर सकते हैं। अनअकैडमी का एक सेंटर प्रयागराज में भी है, जिसका बैच 1 अप्रैल से शुरू हो रहा है। अपनी प्रिपरेशन को बेस्ट चांस देने के लिए आज ही अनअकैडमी के सेंटर विजिट कीजिए। अगर आप ORN में हैं तो ORN में, मुखर्जी नगर है तो मुखर्जी नगर में, और अगर आप प्रयागराज में हैं तो प्रयागराज विजिट कीजिए। तीनों सेंटर की लोकेशन डिस्क्रिप्शन में डाल दी गई है।
Okay, I was also I interacted with the mock interviews over 500 recently in the last couple of months. And I came to know that quite a good number of candidates have made up their mind to join foreign service. And it was a question that I used to always inquire as what are their motivations. Now, many of them are much more mature and well studied. When I joined looking forward to the attractions of traveling, going all over the world, seeing the people and different cultures, which has been very good. But there is a strong reason which I heard from many of these candidates. They mentioned that India's profile has become very high. Today, if they are going to join, we are 5th largest economy in the world, soon to be 3rd largest, and a fairly powerful country by virtue of not just economic strength, also our maturity of political institutions, and intelligence of our own people who have shown excellent results whenever they have been given an opportunity. You look at the United States, many of the top multinationals, 40, 50 of them, are being headed by the Indians who have made it through the struggle, through the same kind of weeding out process where the talent is recognized. United States has one of the finest institutions of recognizing a talent. When you deliver, when you give results, it is noticed and it is seen. So far I have noticed and seen that their system of selecting the top man at the helm is very fair, very competitive, and very properly done. And if you are not able to deliver, then you move away. Then you have to take the risk, take the accountability, and you have to go sideways. And our Indians look at Microsoft or Google or many others, our Indian IBM, a whole lot of people, they have gone through the same Indian background, and then in USA they have done further refinement to their personality, to their leadership, to their skills. And they are shining, and this is a matter of great pride for us, that our Indian diaspora is so good. When they are being recognized so much there, hopefully they will also be recognized within India also. Exactly. And that's a factor that is a very important thing. You do meet, when you are posted abroad, you do meet one of the best of the best from the Indian diaspora. And there you see the talent. Of course, many of them have gone because they have got a good opportunity to serve, to work for a multinational and work in a proper manner. They are rewarded, compensated well, and they are happy. And I'm sure India is moving to a stage now where many of them will like to come back and contribute, because we are now gone beyond 3.7, 3.8 trillion. And with present growth rate of 7 to 7.5%.
7.1,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, 7 to 7.5% on next couple of years. This is going to grow very well. And India is needing, we have the markets which were there abroad, which they went to serve. I'm talking of Indian diaspora, qualified ones. They will be now needed in our own market also, within India also. So when I hear these candidates saying that India's profile will be very crucial, top three, I mean, 2030, we are supposed to be hitting third largest economy. After we will go beyond Germany and Japan. And once that happens, say in another 7 years or 6 years, India will be a country to be reckoned with. It's not a pushover anymore. Whether it's China or USA, they will have to realize third largest economy is not for nothing. It's an economy of the size. Of course, we do take pride that we are the largest population, 1.4 billion and all, that's fine. But there is a gradual qualitative transformation that is happening within country also, within our society. And the weight of India is globally will become very high and heavy. And therefore, the diplomats who will be there during the next 30, 35, 40 years, they will have to do, maneuver or take leverage of this India's weight in a direction which will be good for the country, good for the world. As we say that Global South is an area or a group of countries who are always looking at India's example. Because we are doing all this through an open system, open democratic system. Again, opportunity to talent anywhere in India is available. People do move up, and there is no such situations where people just are of a particular privileged group which go into it. Foreign service gives us opportunity from any background. I mean, in 50s, during the just decade after independence, I remember the kind of class background that the diplomats of India were coming forward. Most of them were from very privileged, well-off families. Okay. Princely families, or some of the very, very well-off families who could afford to send their children to study in UK or other good universities. Now, that part was good. Maybe initially after independence we needed such people, because initially there was a lot of that kind of a diplomatic finish or style or clothing or manner of speaking, your manners, your conduct. Lately, gradually, we do give opportunity to anybody from any part of the country to become a diplomat for India and serve the country. This is a great achievement. People coming from, I come from a very, very interior hinterland place from northwest Bihar. I grew up there and then in Patna University. But I now see people are looking forward to serve a country, and they are not coming from privileged elite background. early 50s and 60s, we had most of those. There was a kind of a slant, I should say, that the government of the day wanted people with already having received a training in the European manners or
So, but sir,
Europeanized.
how was the selection? Because now when they apply, they just write the preference. Like if there's the preference of IFS, so the service will be given. So in that time, which you mentioning, so that this is on the scenario or
you see,
how
the
it was
Foreign
the selection?
Service IAS exam began in 1951.
Okay.
So we started giving through UPSC. But before, after 47, initial 3-4 batches, people were mostly through the, those who have good background, who had good references, who studied in Cambridge or Oxford or London.
Okay. So initially it was like that,
Initially they were given opportunity because they could deal with the Europeans.
Of course.
This weight of Europeans was rather too heavy on Indian diplomacy. But now, over 75 years down the line, and we have done our own improvement in the country in a big way. I mean, what India has been able to achieve is something to be proud of, definitely.
Of course.
In an open system, giving opportunity to everyone to move up, And we have an open system, democracy, and it's not a one-party rule. We compare ourselves with China. China has much easier job to do. A 40 million party running the show in the whole country. Of course, they are also equally 1.4. Things become much easier because everything is well disciplined, and you either follow in the diktat of the party and move towards production or industrial engineering, and all that is happening. But in India, you have to persuade and convince. You have to argue, and Indians are very argumentative. And so therefore, in Indian system, things, in order to get implemented, they take some time, but then they get effectively implemented. So we are doing pretty well in terms of our democracy.
Shining in every stream.
I guess so.
Everywhere.
Of course, there are still some areas where we need to move more and do more.
Like what?
I mean, the socio-economic conditions in India, if you look at it, there are still the well-bred and well-rooted prejudices in the society. Which are, again, we come from a very ancient civilization. So some of the deeply rooted traditions or the bias against women, a very masculine kind of a society. Again, there are other female infanticide. There are a whole lot of things, land reforms.
But these things are changing now, no, sir?
They are changing, but they are taking time because they are changing with education. Hopefully, education will be the antidote and the remedy. And that is still a work in progress, I would say. Some of these panchayats, they are very strong. I mean, they are strong in line with the traditional orientation, not with the modern approach of fairness and transparency and equality to all. So those are, hidden dark areas which have to be sorted out and removed.
So, sir, during your tenure, what was some of the most, I would say, memorable experience or challenging experience you faced?
A couple of them I can say. I was Deputy High Commissioner in a country called Maldives. The Maldives, which is nowadays in the media.
Yeah.
But they are a lovely people. It's a good country. They have 1,200 islands, and almost 200 islands have been converted into resorts. Resorts of very high standard with European funds. And Europeans also do the marketing around the year. So Maldivian concessionaire, the one who holds the resort, receives a certain amount of the income. Now, when I was there, 97 to 2000, there was no hospital in entire.
Okay.
And there was a commitment made by our government earlier to build a 200-bed hospital. So when I arrived in 97, the hospital was ready, but there were no doctors and nurses, and a lot of staff was to go from India. We have a very nice aid program. Ministry of External Affairs gives a good aid program. So this was under some 25 crore aid program by when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi had gone there, he had committed, and the hospital was ready. So Then with the help of Ministry of External Affairs, we have a ITech division which does aid program, training, project execution. This hospital received many Indian doctors and nurses. Medicines also used to come. As a Deputy High Commissioner, during my 3 years of role, one of my tasks was to make sure that the hospital runs very well. All the equipments come from India or wherever else, Singapore, other places, and it became functional. And I was very happy to see that hospital started giving so much of, preventive health facility to the people. Similarly, I can also say that in Brazil, when I was Consul General in Sao Paulo, which is a huge country, Brazil itself is a huge country, almost 2/3 of their economy was in the region that I was in charge of. And they were asking for, they had lots of cattle, they had taken from India since 1920s. And they wanted a kind of a hybrid, what is called genetic mixing in order to improve the genetic final product. Now, Indian government had put some restrictions because the Indian traditional particular type of species of bulls and cows were not being permitted for exports.
Okay.
And Brazilian government was very keen to, because there was a kind of a intermixing and leading to loss of immunity, and they wanted to diversify the gene pool of their cattle. Cattle is a huge industry in Brazil, and they also export beef and all. Of course, they do that in a proper sanitary conditions. But this was very difficult to achieve from India. But when I was able to move to the Ministry of Agriculture, some of the species which Brazilians wanted was finally agreed on a very limited basis. Because Brazilians could explain that their entire cattle pool will go away or will disappear, because unless the gene pool is not diversified. So this was, it took some time for us to agree to it, but it was achieved. Because Brazil is a very friendly country, and Brazil looks up to India also. You will be surprised that Brazil has gone through military dictatorship from 1965 to 1985, 20 years. Whereas during this same period, since 1947, we have remained always a civil government administration and always a democracy. Even if our democracy cannot be said to be absolutely on the Western standard par, but still it is fairly good, and the voice of the people do get decided, in the polls and decisions made. So these are a couple of things. I do realize that very often things are not always easy to achieve, because in India there are things which are available, but in order to take it to the outside world, outside world, very often they ask for things, but we have to work out whether it is good for us also, So that always works, and it is not entirely on an ambassador or a consul general to decide. You have to work with the Indian ministries, state governments, and this is where I emphasize that any candidate wishing to do well must be able to understand our own country extremely well. This is a very key point.
Of course. So, sir, you mentioned that about that hospital in Maldives. So, is it still there?
It's still functioning very much. Yes. It is flourishing. They have added more, 200 beds, and now it has become one of the with the specialists, not just from our India, but it has been handed over back to the government of Maldives. So they do get similar experts from other countries, whatever tuberculosis or polio, whether Japan is giving, Malaysia is giving, Singapore is giving, Pakistan also gives, India also giving. So they are free to take, but initial foundation and the setting up of the hospital was a great achievement. It was I was happy to see that people do have a place to go and get the treatment,
So, sir, what strategies did you employ to enhance India's diplomatic relations with Panama and other countries you served in?
Okay, you see, Panama, I was based in Panama. I also had 3 more countries, Nicaragua, Honduras, and El Salvador. So Central America, it's a important. Panama Suez Canal goes through, a lot of ships go through. Indian sailors have been on these ships, and many of them used to find something or other. So moment they get stranded in Panama, it comes to us. You know, we are the first line of safety or defense or help. We used to provide a lot of Indian sailors have made a very good name on most of the ships. You know, they go all over, they work, and whenever they are in a situation, I remember not just in Panama, I have always done this. I was Consul General in Osaka, Kobe, with the entire West Japan, west of Osaka, with me, and many ports there. You know, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, many ports. These ships will come, and occasionally those ships will get on the port with they will not be given their salary, or they will have some internal complaints with the management of the ship. Now we will get a SOS, first line. So we will rush, we will go and meet, most of them are Indian sailors, even the captain and the chief engineer and all other senior personnel were from Indian origin. We will try to intervene and solve. They were not getting the salaries, you know, payments were not being made, which is normally, you see, many Indians leave India hoping that the rest of the world will work perfectly. It does not so. It does not happen like that. The rest of the world is not perfect. They do take a little bit of risk and courage. And whenever they are in a situation where Indian embassy or a consulate can help, we do come forward to help them. We meet them, we try and see what is the best way. Some of them have wanted to go back, you know, so we will, they will get the tickets and we will arrange them to take the flight.
What were the most reasons of going back?
Mostly the shipping crew, they have a hard life. And the owners of the ship are like all other owners, very miser. They won't pay immediately. They will wait for some money to come from somewhere. And the management of the ship, they will always give goodwill to the crew and the workers, sailors. Goods have to be loaded. You know, shipping is a business. You know, goods have to be picked up. It has to be taken from one port in one part of the world to another port through 2 weeks, 3 weeks of sailing. And they have to be given all comforts in the sense, whatever as per the contract. The contracts will not be always obeyed and followed. Their salaries will not be given. Their leaves will not be given.
And I also read somewhere they have people who work in ships. They have back problem.
Also, of course, to stay on the ships throughout high seas, it's a very challenge. It's a challenging thing. You get to see, but our Indians have been very hardworking people. They go in many areas, many places, and they normally do well. But sometimes things come to a threshold where it goes beyond. So we will intervene. We will correspond with the owners of the ship, and we'll try to tell them that you need to. Local authorities of like government of Japan, they also don't want a ship to take the port and stay there, because then their other ships turnover becomes problematic. They want the ship to solve the problem, because this is not their mainstay. They have come to discharge the load. They should discharge and go back with the loading. Now, this is not always a smooth sailing. I am mentioning this because in Panama we had plenty of Indian sailors crossing the Panama Canal, and occasionally they had, sometimes the documentation were completing their time, they were maturing or expiring, we used to renew. We also have a large number of Indians in Panama. They are trading, and there is a duty-free trade zone in Colon, which has plenty of Indians, and Indians were, they were buying from all over the world and selling in South America and North America. And these Indians were doing very well. Plus, Panama is a democratic, very friendly country. There was nothing between India and Panama on political side. So there was not much work on the political relations, although we had always exchange of visits, foreign minister visiting here. They also had an ambassador. And similarly, Nicaragua and El Salvador. All that we were doing. But I made a bit of a more emphasis to promote trade and shipping and consular work for the Indian diaspora, and also joint ventures. And Panama also has a lot of what is called tax havens. We used to get from CBI what is called a letter rogatory, which is to ask for details of certain transactions. And now, very often, I can share this with you, the Panamanian government line of argument was that this is our bread and butter. We provide a safe handling of funds. We don't know the funds coming to us are absolutely legal or illegal or bona fide or tax paid or not paid or deducted or not deducted. That's not our worry. We provide this service. We provide a credible service to people from all over the world, not only to India. And a lot of people come to them. They have fantastic law firms, very highly educated from US, UK. And recently there has been some disclosures, as you might have also read. Some of the kind of secret communications in the US or other places, they have come out where even Indians having a lot of funds in these tax havens, which Indian government definitely is pushing and is working through its own channels. But tax haven is a normal business. One has to see that. Although we do look at it with a kind of a derogatory or a negative connotation, but there are more than 40-50 countries who take pride in providing this kind of a security to their funds, and you can come anytime and use them, and this is a service being provided by them. Whether Indians also come there is not something that they are particularly happy or unhappy. It's none of their thing. I mean, whenever you will take it up with the government of Panama, they may not provide you, complete access to their records, because these records are also in the private law firms, where the government of Panama has not much control. So those were the difficulties. But still, I had a very nice stay, and we were able to push lots of joint collaborations. I remember in Nicaragua, there was a requirement for $20 million substation, electric transmission line. So I used to deal with their Minister for Energy and Power. He made a request, and I said, please make an initial preliminary feasibility report. And after some time, I sent it back to my government here. Again, the Ministry of External Affairs has an aid-giving division. And then our ministry asked for a detailed project report, DPR, which was again made. And these were in Spanish. They had to be translated in English, because this is the challenge that you see. When a language is a very important aspect in diplomacy. With the language opens many doors.
So how many languages did you learn?
I had to learn, I chose Japanese is my language, which I learned in 1982 when I was posted in Japan. I did 2 postings. I did almost 5 years. I still speak fluently Japanese and I can understand. I used to read and write also. So 80s, when I joined service, 80s, Japan was in a big, moving up very rapidly and growing very rapidly. But a decade later, Japan went through certain changes. They reached a stage of kind of a maturity, or there was a Plaza Accord of 1985. The currency was upvalued. Japan was taking advantage of 250 yen to a dollar till 1985. This is Plaza Accord of New York in 1985. The US tried to tell them that you cannot have such devalued Japanese currency and do more of exports to USA. So they agreed. Of course, some amount of arm twisting was there. They agreed, and 120, 125 became yen to a dollar. Now the prices suddenly became double. And that led to several problems in Japanese economy. That earlier straight open advantage of rapid expansion of exports to US and Europe, it became difficult. Once the price gets doubled, it becomes difficult. Now, thereafter, Japan, since 1989-90 onwards, their economic growth came down, because Japanese economy is export-led mostly, completely. After the Japan surrendered in 1945, and the US general was there, MacArthur. Japan did receive a lot of economic help from USA, but they also had a political kind of control in making their constitution and Japanese system. So Japanese rehabilitation was done both politically in a big way by the United States, and economic transformation also was done in a heavy way. So much so that 1964, when Japan hosted the Olympics, it was an announcement to the rest of the world that Japan has been modernized and rehabilitated, and all the destruction that happened in Japan during the Second World War, 1941 to 1945, never, as if it had never happened. So this kind of thing, when it happened, Japan realized that after doubling an exchange rate, they were not able to match and compete, and their decline began. 1990s are considered a lost decade for Japan, and even later, they are still trying to figure out how to do, because once they have reached, how much can you make infrastructure or highways or industry, and technology also is moving. So with the technology, Japan also does its own in-house R&D, but of course, United States today is realized to be the best in terms of the R&D, and because of R&D that US provides, a 3 trillion company like NVIDIA, NVIDIA, has emerged from nowhere in last just 2 or 3 years. So this is a success of the US development, R&D and the talent. And we are also on the same track, very similar to the US. Why I compare very often, because once you have seen what is happening in USA and what is happening in our country, our talent is getting an opportunity to move up. And this talent is also getting startups, financial help.
Being it any field.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have so much of resources in our large population. And we are doing very good because we have reached almost on par with the top of the US in terms of the talent to talent. So therefore, after this, it's just that India should keep continuing to grow. And I do sometimes joke with my friends that India should be called United States of India. It will become soon.
Yes, yes.
After having become third largest in by 2030, it's not very far. We can move forward much.
Yeah.
And therefore, the Indian Foreign Service people joining now would be have a great work to contribute to.
Let's hope for this. Yeah.
Right.
So how do you perceive the role of the Indian Foreign Service in the changing global geopolitical landscape?
Yeah, the geopolitics is the key word here. The geopolitical landscape is changing in our favor. Of course, India as an independent foreign policy is realized and reckoned with. And we do always look after our own interest, what is our own interest. For example, even in the Russia-Ukraine war, India has been able to keep good relations with both. Ukraine foreign minister came recently, a Russian foreign minister also has visited. We have very good dialogue going with both countries. And what is the issue between them is internal between them. But at the same time, we are also able to buy some concessional petroleum from Russia, whose share has gone up in the last year, almost 35%, which is very, very high. And we are, you see, the entire foreign policy and geopolitics works basically that you need to deal with the rest of the world in a manner in which you are able to protect your own interest and you are able to leverage other external countries and forces with a view to help India. That's the way. So within India, right now, our entire number one priority is to continue to grow fast and rapidly, do the development, do the infrastructure. I mean, Viksit Bharat is a fantastic idea and objective. I wish we do it, and I wish I'm there by then to also see. 2047 is not very far, but still a lot of work is required, But change is very much happening. One can see the change that is happening next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. India would become a very heavy country in the world to be taken seriously. And economic strength is what matters. Once you have your own economic house in order, you can do a lot of leverages with a view to make things good and fair and impartial. We don't have an attitude to expand our colony or expand our territory. We want to live our own life happily, but at the same time, we want to insist that at the same time that others do get their fair share of whatever they are trying to achieve. We have very good relations with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, and with Israel, of course, all over Africa. The idea is to also help Global South with, India has excellent talent for training and enhancing skills, HR skills, human resources skills. And we are doing that in a plentiful manner. Our friends come, and also in defense training, also military related, civilian training, computer, of course, IT, and also projects. We are doing projects also, a lot of projects. Nowadays, of course, China has their own Belt and Road Initiative where they give a lot of money, but they are now being seen as a debt trap. Sri Lanka is in a debt trap. Many other countries are finding the same situation. But I have seen that Indian experience of development is so appropriate for many countries in Global South, including Africa and many other places, that they can learn what India has been able to do, in terms of how we have been able to make our own infrastructure and a middle class and a self-sustaining good size of market. 400, 500 million people in Indian market is a great attraction for industry, small, medium, large, and it's all happening. And this is where many other countries like Japan, World Bank, and Africa Development Bank, they are thinking of even providing finance to Indian projects, which can be done in Global South. And those projects would be extremely well because they will draw from the experience of the India. Even in vaccination experience, we have now reached one of the world's largest. Our vaccination companies are making fantastic products and they are going all over. So, but we do have also our own need of our market, our own society is very large. So we also have to take care of that. And this is always a challenge which we do.
So, sir, can you tell us some specific diplomatic initiatives which you were part of in your tenure?
Yes, I will tell you about...
And their outcomes.
Yeah. What happens is that training-wise, I mentioned there has been a huge demand for training in India. And our foreign ministry provides, I guess the numbers are more than 25,000 in a year from all over the world. They come, they are brought here, trained, and then they go back. And this is not just a short duration, 3 to 6 months, even in universities. I remember I was the Deputy Director General in the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, ICCR. So the Cultural Relations Agency under the Ministry of External Affairs. And I was very happy. Initially, we were doing academic exchange program where India would send an India chair, a professor of India, on any subject of Indian history, political science, or economics, and completely paid for by the Indian government. So we brought some changes, including providing them salaries and compensations like an Indian diplomat. Now, Indian diplomats are adequately compensated. It's attractive. And when Indian academicians came to know, our demand went up very high. So from 10 to 15 per year of academic chairs in top universities in the USA, when I was there, I could reach out to about almost 130, 140 universities. You have to sign an MOU, send Indian professors, you have to advertise and send to University Grants Commission and other universities, and you'll get plenty of interest from top-notch Indian academicians. They have highly qualified degrees, And when they are being paid and seen as an Indian diplomat, that was a great attraction. So we were able to sort it out. Initially, it was not so. Initially, there were some administrative hiccups or restrictions, which are very often there, why should we provide them Indian diplomats equivalent salary? But they are academicians, they are Indian diplomats, they are academic envoy. They reach out to the students at a very important stage, and they explain, and they were professors and they were teaching Indian history and Indian society, Indian sociology, Indian economics, political science. And those universities, whether it was in Canada or UK or Germany or France, we were so happy with the results because these professors left a mark. Initially, they went for 2 years and then they get extension for 1 year, then 1 year more. After 4 years, they come back. So this was a very successful program of academic exchange, and it helped India reach out to a large number of population at a young age, in the university. So this is one of the things in which our government works. Government has many schemes and many policies, they do work, but if you do it well, results are coming in much better and satisfactory manner.
So what challenges did you face, like when you have to implement these reforms?
Yeah, of course. You see, in many of the countries where English is not spoken, like Spanish or Portuguese, your team that you have do not have much desire or interest. So one has to, in order to break the barrier of the language, like I remember in Panama, all the 4 countries were Spanish speaking, and I had a team with me in Panama. So in Venezuela also, where I was as an early diplomat, young diplomat, our ambassador at that time in Venezuela also started, learning Spanish program, just free of cost. The tutor will come 1 hour every day. Now that works great incentive. Language barrier is a major challenge.
Yes, everywhere.
In all those countries where language is not English.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so now also to encourage the staff and the team that I had, our own colleagues in the mission, many of them, I myself will learn first the Spanish. I had orientation in Venezuela where I learned it, and Panama was just brushing it up and encouraging them. Now, when I saw this, it made a big difference to their confidence. They could go for shopping and even know and understand what is going on. Any visitor coming, they could do conversation. And also watching TV and radio, listening to radio, a few basics, initial orientation goes a long way. And then you open up, then you grow in confidence. After all, there is a tenure of 3 years. So the staff, if initially when he arrives, he is oriented towards 3 to 6 months, a language, then the language grows on him. He sees the benefit of the language. And with the language having barrier crossed, many doors open. This is one thing that I myself discovered when I was starting my diplomatic career in Japan, 82. I learned language in 9 months to 10 months. Okay. And it was a full-time learning, intensive learning in a university and also at home. But after I learned, I could see the Japanese, another dimension of Japanese culture, Japanese people. When I will meet, they will come to my home, I will invite them, and I will go to their place. You start conversation and...
Because you're communicating your thoughts and accepting theirs. And,
Exactly. So then the friendship and the bonding becomes much deeper. And they do remember. I still have friends in Japan who remember me, send me letters sometime or a message. So because those bonds were very strong. And of course, this is the thing that is a bit of a challenge because language is not always easy to cross through, but it is much desirable, definitely.
Yeah, it is. So, sir, how do you view the evolving relationship between the Latin American countries from a diplomatic perspective?
Okay, now what happens is that, thank you. Yeah, that Latin America is a big country, right from Mexico down to Chile, Santiago. It's about 500 million people, and and very friendly people. Most of the people are migrants from Europe in the 19th century, and they have huge resources, mines and land and river, and people are they are democratic. They still go through, although there are some countries which are going through the military kind of dictatorship, like in Venezuela. Hugo Chavez was the one, followed by his successor. Now, they all aspire to become democratic, free society, open society, free media. They want all those kinds of independent judiciary. Aspirations are very similar, and this is very visible. And they do look at India in a big way, that India has done itself, gone through its own challenges. And those people in South America also have similar development challenges. Like in Brazil, I remember there are, President Lula was the president when I was Consul General in Sao Paulo, 2003 to 2006. At that time, President Lula was also trying to do what is called a kind of a subsidy to the poor people, poor families every month. This is was borrowed later on by many other countries, Mexico, even India. So many of the experiments that they have succeeded, they borrow, we borrow from them, and many of the cases where we have done well, like complete elimination of smallpox from India, vaccination, and so a whole lot of pandemic diseases. So these challenges are very similar. These experiences are very similar. Of course, a bit of a handicap is the language part, but nowadays English has now been accepted in most of the world in a big way. And English is learnt in the school level, and the new generation which is coming up is quite familiar with the English. Internet, thanks to the internet.
Now we have smartphone, language converter also.
Oh,
days.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
So technology is also emerging,
Right.
to comfort these language barriers and all.
Right.
So, sir, what advice you would give to young diplomats as aspirants to make a mark in the Indian Foreign Service, who are preparing for, specifically for IFS?
Yeah. Few simple things. I mean, they should have a curiosity to see rest of the world or other societies, other countries, desire to kind of meet people and make friends, and remain open to seeing new societies, new civilizations, new traditions. This urge or this curiosity is very essential. If you are willing to understand another society or another country with their people, I mean, you will see that their aspirations, their dreams, their struggles are very similar. Very similar. Humans are all similar in most continents. Of course, because of the tradition and the history, colonialism or otherwise, they have gone through a different experience. And the aspirations and the dreams and the struggles are so common and so similar. So that brings us to people-to-people bonding. Then you are in a position to appreciate their culture, their music, their food, whether it's a Europe or in any part of the world, you have to have this openness, which comes readily and easily to us. We are a continent. We are called a subcontinent, but we are no less than a full continent. The kind of diversity that we have, and the people they meet and they go across. So one of the things that I would also connect it to this is that a candidate who wishes to join to become an Indian diplomat in a very important phase of India's life coming up, where India is not only going to be third largest, even beyond, and these diplomats will have to play the most important role of leveraging, India's achievement and targets, is to understand India itself in its diversity. That will give them a huge strength, because if he understands the Indian diversity, which is there right from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, north and east and the west, then he will be able to bring that upon himself. That experience will be very useful for him to see what is going on in many countries in global south. and he will be able to relate immediately and see how he can help.
So, sir, how important it is to accept or to, to learn, to adapt these different cultures across the world when you are in the service?
Yeah, that comes usually on your own, although one can definitely look forward to remain flexible and adaptable. I mean, if you are having strong ties to stay within your own country, then perhaps foreign service is not the right service for you to go abroad, because the service is abroad. You know,
Yeah,
you
but-
work mostly abroad, also in Delhi at headquarters or in other regional offices like.
So that one officer has to choose, or like
No,
it is given?
It is given.
Okay.
It is chosen according to your choice and your rank.
Okay.
So many people choose French language even today, because French is spoken after English in many more countries, in Africa and many countries. And also Spanish, after French, Spanish, then the German also is spoken in some countries. But few countries like China and Japan will remain always important. China is an important country, very important country for India. I don't think China can wish away India, neither can India wish away China. You know, China has to deal with India, has to take stock of India, so much so that India has to take stock of China. You know, in few years, when India becomes third largest and China is second largest, China has to remain aware that it is talking or dealing with a country which is no pushover, you know, and it will have to realize. But there are differences in our system. You know, we are an open democratic country. Our policies, our government, everything is accountable to our parliament, our people, media, general population. China is run by 40 million people, party holders, and their top leader. Now, I wish China becomes a democratic society like us, where people would then be able to see how friendly Indians are to the Chinese. I have traveled. I had the pleasure to travel in China when I was posted in Mongolia, quite a lot within China by train, also other cities. China is as ancient civilization as India is.
Yes.
And these are two different societies, but there is a huge amount of similarity also. You know, not just the Buddhism and the historical traditions. In many regards, many of the traditional orientations of society or priorities are very similar. And there is a fantastic amount of synergy between these two societies. But in order for those synergies to come out in state-to-state relations, there has to be some amount of parity and equality in terms of how these are to be leveraged. You know, while India can hope to leverage its popular aspirations of the people and parliamentary people and society, it's not much that we can hope for in Chinese society, because there it's 40 million people who run the show there, and the rest of the 1,400 million people. So as and when society changes, we hope they do have same access to open society, and there are more interactions, more people-to-people contact. China and India will benefit a lot from each other.
So, sir, can you share some insight into the challenges and opportunities faced by India and its diplomatic relations with countries in Central or South America?
Okay. One of the challenges is, of course, the language, as I mentioned earlier, the distance. The distance is the second part, because they are quite far. And South America is being mostly met by European countries, because most of the people who have gone from either Spain or Portugal or Italy or France and Germany also, they think of, whenever they need something, they think of those countries first. So they go to Europe, and most of the things they need for their development, they look at the European experience, European model. which comes to them, which is expensive for them. But now the distance barrier has been broken in the sense that air travel has become very smooth, shipping has become very comfortable, and things are moving. Trade is also moving a lot now. I now remember Brazil had a peculiar medicine issue, generic medicines. When I went there in 2003 as a consul general in Sao Paulo, the American multinationals had a huge predominant say in the health sector and medicines, branded medicines, which are American companies, but very expensive, leading to only the top 5% of the society able to afford, and the remaining 85-90% people not able to meet them at all. Now, one of the things that I was able to do was to break this cartel, this barrier of the American multinational, because the entire country came to them as a US medicines grip hold. Now, to break the barrier was not easy. We had to reach out to the Minister of Health for Brazil. We explained that the Indian generic medicines are fantastic. They are top quality. They are being sent to USA with the approval of US FDA, which is the regulatory body. And US FDA's equivalent in Brazil is called ANVISA, ANVISA. So we approached from Sao Paulo to the health minister, to the ANVISA, and we mounted a delegation just to make them familiar with the top industries in pharma industries in India. A 2-week visit, and it was of course supported and sponsored by the Indian pharma. So I was able to reach out to the Indian pharma companies. For them, a new market was opening up, and they were very keen, and we were able to help. So this is how things can be worked out. And eventually, Brazil today has more than 35-40 Indian top pharma companies, whether it's a Sun Pharma or it's Reddy Laboratories. All of them are well entrenched, and we were able to get through because then we are able to reach out to the large number. When you break a monopoly or a cartel of a stronger force, very often they bring more resistance. They will bring more resistance. So during my time, we were able to break through and we were moving ahead. We used to have lots of exhibitions. Many of these pharma companies will come. And this was one of the important aspects of the work in Brazil, economic diplomacy, which I always emphasize is a very important work between Indian companies and the rest of the world. So we used to take part in many of these exhibitions. Indian companies will show their product, and it is again, remember, Portuguese language. The general masses are Portuguese. So you have to take the help of translator and interpreter. And I also speak Portuguese because the Spanish Portuguese are very similar. So I was able to see through where the issues of hindrance are coming and the challenge. But I'm glad that after my 3 years of stay there, I moved from Brazil to Mongolia as ambassador. But it was a very fascinating country. Brazil people, they love India. And Indians also like Brazil. Only thing, the distance is there, so not much tourism can be done. But tourism is still growing. And there is a good amount of bonhomie and fair cordiality between the people. Because they have read and now they are reading more and more. Because India is emerged as a country. For example, meditation and yoga is of a great mystery to people in Brazil. Now, they are, of course, they are well off. Their per capita income is higher, not as high as USA, or lower than USA, much higher than ours. They have huge resources. Their population is small, 145, 150 million. But those people are well off, and they also have the same stress and internal family conflicts. The family ties are not so strong. Like in India, we have so strong family ties, which does, in a way, remove your internal stresses. Our family do work like a fantastic way to keep most of the individual stresses, which is missing nowadays in Europe and in where the families are falling apart or things are not smooth. Brazil has also gone through the similar situation. And they will ask me or my other colleagues very often, how is it that Indians remain happy even when they are poor? It was very difficult to explain that India and its civilization,
Because they have connections, they have family.
connections, family, and also India has been able to find out through its deep ancient civilization, you know, certain meditational practices
Of course.
and civilizational achievements that we have. Those are there in India, and those who are seeking, they find it. So they come to seek also.
Yeah. So there is like Steve Jobs also.
Yes,
Yeah.
he came to a guru in Uttarakhand.
That mandir, I forgot the name.
I've
Neem
been
Karoli
there.
Baba.
Yes. I have gone to that ashram.
You,
And
acha,
I
you
was
too.
also, I also travel, do some trekking in
Okay.
Himalayas, Uttarakhand, Mussoorie and all that. So I have seen that Karoli Baba. And similar has been the experience of many others. You know, they do come to seek as how is it that Indians have this secret. But you have to go with devotion and dedication and in a serious manner. It's not comes immediately like a medicine or, it's not quick.
So, sir, what are the key skills and attributes that a diplomat should possess to be a successful in the international arenas?
Okay.
Arenas.
Yeah, a couple of things that I can share is that he should have a keen interest to listen. Keen interest to listen carefully to what the other person is trying to convey, and even convey what is his hidden intentions. That has to be understood. You know, everything that he says, because after all, you are dealing with another culture, another society, another civilization. And it's not necessarily that you have to be upfront with open heart. Of course, you can show your cordiality, your bona fide, and speak to him as a good friend. But you also need to have the keen insight to watch as what is he up to. You know, so you have to listen very carefully. His whatever he wishes to say or share or wants to achieve, and if there is a hidden motive or hidden intentions. As a diplomat, this is expected. You know, he has to have a good gaze of humans or persons across. You know, what we call the person on the other side, whether man, woman, or whatever. I mean, he must be able to understand well, understand so well that then he can reach out if something nice can be worked out between the two ideas, the ideas of that person and Indian diplomat. Because only when he has been able to understand clearly what is the, the hidden, not hidden necessarily in a bad sense, but what is his deep intention. And then he has to work with several groups. You know, you reach out to in a new country as a diplomat, as an ambassador or consul general, it should be taken as a new assignment. It's a field assignment, field country, field posting. You need to understand that country's history, the need to understand that country's traditions, food, society, the political groups, the commercial groups, who are the important groups who are working in that country. Once you understand these important forces in that country, then only you can relate. You know, you can relate with which group would like to work from India. So it's very important to understand, and of course, you are expected to read not just a little bit, but quite a lot. Whenever you go as an ambassador to Brazil or Mexico, Argentina, even in Africa, whether it's Kenya, where I served as a High Commissioner also, and any of South Africa, one has to go deep into that country's traditions and historical facts in terms of what are the aspirations of the political regime. In a way, as an ambassador, you are to relate to that government. Now, that government person, whoever is the chief executive, prime minister or president, what is he expecting? What is he wanting to deal with India? in what way. One has to have that kind of appreciation, which cannot come suddenly. You have to go through background notes, your predecessor's report. Even Ministry of External Affairs has its own report. There are lots of reports, are not a shortage. There are plenty of things, but this has to be done, and you have to prepare very well. And when you go there, you also start meeting. You start making contacts. In the initial couple of months, you meet all the top people, whether it's a speaker, whether it's a foreign minister, foreign secretary, minister of industry, minister of finance. When you meet them, you establish a very good rapport, and after that, you are able to know as what is to be done. Very often, the same people you will be meeting more and more in many social gatherings, like Independence Day reception where the president is hosting. All these elite will be there. So you have to know how to relate to them. If you are looking, suppose that that country A, its finance minister is looking for $30-40 million line of credit from India for a project of, let's say, electric transmission or substation or any other thing. You have to make an assurance to that minister that this will be taken care of, and India would pay adequate attention. So there are requirements, just because he writes a letter and it comes to the ambassador, it doesn't mean that it gets through. The project's viability is also examined. The project's overall, how the project will be able to repay back the loan. Line of credit is basically a soft loan by Indian government, which Indian government gives nowadays with more generous funds available. After all, the size of economy is the 5th largest. So these funds are becoming bigger, and therefore these aspects of economic diplomacy, where the projects are to be executed with the help of Indian donor or Indian soft loan, because many times Indian soft loan will be used by Indian good companies to execute those projects. With the project will be executed in that country, but it will be done by the Indian companies with the Indian funds. Machinery will go from India. So it has to be ensured that it should be done very well, much better than how it is done within India, because India's reputation is at stake. So this is important aspect for the Indian ambassador to ensure that if there is anything which is not appropriate, he should raise a red flag, or he should stop that, or he should recommend ministry accordingly, because the decisions are made in a group of several agencies. Ambassador is one of the most active person in terms of finding an opportunity where Indian government soft loan can go, what project, how it will be executed, also he will have a say. But back home in India, the executing agency, which is Ministry of External Affairs, this is called, this is Indian ITEC division or aid giving division. They come in the picture. They also do a kind of assessment of which companies are correct companies who will not sink the money. Those aspects are also seen. So at every stage, Indian ambassadors ethically correct and judicious judgment is required. So.
So can you discuss any specific challenges you encountered while serving in different capacities?
Yeah, I'll mention about this generic medicines experience.
Okay.
And this is where we had to work on many levels. Not just sending the team of ANVISA, the FDA's equivalent in the Ministry of Health in Brazil, because those teams are experts, in the industry of the pharmaceutical industry. They know exactly how things are done, and their standards are also very high. They are used to seeing American companies manufacturing. Now, when India is coming, the cost of the price is very low, is 1/10, and it can reach out to a large number of people. Whereas the American firm, when they are bringing those pharmaceutical products, they are American companies, they are multinationals, the costs are very high, which cannot reach out. So there is a big benefit in larger masses to receive the medicines of equally good effectiveness and quality and low cost, which India, top Indian companies are in any case producing, and they are sending to the US market. So when inspection happens of the pharmaceutical firms, like when FDA comes, they look at each and every aspect of the manufacturing right here, whether in Goa or in Gujarat or anywhere. So then they issue certain observations, good manufacturing practices, hygiene issues, some other practices. Similar thing, Brazilian company, it took some time, when Anvisa, the FDA's equivalent, came to India, they looked at everywhere. They also raised certain red flags. And I must say the Indian companies, because they had the interest to expand more market, they were willing to do that. And they were able to provide the same medicines which were going to USA, to Brazil, with the labeling and all in Portuguese and language, all that. So this has been, it was a constant, you have to pursue that matter. And similarly, sometimes I mentioned about the sailors and the ships getting stuck in a port, and those sailors do look forward to India providing them the support, even to repatriate them back to India. Many of them sometimes have lost their passport, so they have to be issued what is called one-way travel document.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called emergency document. They can travel back, and once they have come to India, then they make their own passport once again. So Indian embassies do provide a big support, big help to the most Indian diaspora whenever they are in a... So this is another aspect of area called consular area. Consular area deals with the passports renewal, if they have any property issue, power of attorney. There are a whole lot of areas. Many deaths happen, the bodies have to be sent back to India because the person wants them to do the cremation here. And some of the family disputes also. I remember in Kenya, we had family disputes. They were from Gujarati people.
Okay.
And the wife will return to India, but because of their own differences, she will not like to go back. Okay. And the family there would ask embassy to, then we would not intervene easily, because this is something in their personal matter. We would only convey the message as a neutral party that if you can wish to look at this kind of request. These situations have happened. I have also had, when I was Consul General in Japan, there was some Indian diaspora. The girls, they were going, one Indian girl, a young girl, was marrying a US-based of the same community. Marriage happened and marriage broke. The girl came back. And the parents came to us saying that, look, we have given so much of jewelry, he is not returning. Now this became an issue. So you can take it up only to some extent. Some of the difficulties are created by people, which not all of them can be solved.
So you face, you face everything?
Outside India, you can say that. You do come in,
You're facing, geopolitical issues.
That's right.
And domestic issues.
Yes. But
family issues.
They seek help, and then the girl side family parents will say, okay, no, you have to help us, our side. The boy's family will say the similar thing. This can only go to some extent.
So in this kind of situation, which side do you take?
No, neutral. You have to be neutral. You have to convey the message from one side to other side to other. The idea is that if they can work out among them, eventually that is what happens after some time. When the messages you don't even get through, we are all right to convey the messages from one side to other.
Sir, what are some of the rewarding experiences during your diplomatic career?
Rewarding in the sense that when you can help a stranded Indian for some reason. Yeah.
The roots are there always, wherever you travel, wherever you go.
Yeah. People lose their purse or wallet, and you come to their rescue. That's a big relief. That's something that he...
So this is there, wherever you travel, that Indian thing is there. That, helping Indian people.
Yes. Not just the Indian thing. Our embassies are been told, and this has...
This isn't your...
Absolutely, it's a mandate. Yeah, it's a very important and priority mandate. Not just the diaspora, even Indians in any stress, any distress situation, Indian embassy has to come to the rescue. and provide support in most
Whatever
possible.
crisis, smaller or
Yes,
the biggest,
yes,
bigger
yes.
crisis.
Yes. Many of them get arrested, and I remember this is an example which is surprising in the sense some of the Indians, particularly from Western India, were very keen to go to US through Central America, Mexico, and crossing the border. Young couples. Now, they will get arrested in Nicaragua or another country, and then we will get the message. There's so many Indians in Panama also. This was, but you see, these countries normally they are very open. They welcome Indians with open arms. Central American countries. But these Indians have some other intentions. They are crossing the rule and the required norms.
Like what, sir?
I mean, they are going through illegally to cross the border from Mexico to US.
Donkey.
You can say that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So in the process, when they get stuck in Nicaragua or Panama or El Salvador, you go and you do the consular assistance. This is called consular help. So you meet them, you ask them, what do you want me to do? Like, would you like to go back? And it was many cases they were happy to go back. We would provide them a one-way ticket and a document to travel. Some couple of families were keen. No, we are happy, we will stay here. Now, then it is very difficult for us to ask them, you don't want us to help you? He says, no, we are happy, we have our target and objective, we'll take care of ourselves. Now, those were surprises.
So, what do you do at that point? You cannot leave them and they're not taking your help.
We kind of take from them some kind of a written declaration that Indian Embassy has given enough help and we don't need any more. So those were surprises, but they are willing to take the risk, as you know, people who are willing to go to US or other countries by not proper means, they get stuck and then the Indian Embassy comes to their rescue, which is definitely something very, very of good support and good feeling, good satisfaction.
So, sir, share us your preparation of, when you're preparing for this exam, and then after training also, we would like to know your experience, overall experience.
Okay. See, when you join the Foreign Service, there is now what is called Foreign Service Training Institute, which is in Delhi. And you normally go there, and it's a 2-year training program in which they expose you to a large number of theoretical aspects of international law and diplomacy, as well as Vienna Convention of Diplomatic Relations and Vienna Convention of Consular Relations, plus many aspects of what is expected from you. Because you come as from any stream of education. You could be engineer, could have studied history, could have studied sociology. So you are together and you are exposed, and a lot of good faculty is brought from all over the country as well as within the city of Delhi, whoever is able to. And they are also taken to many other places within India. Of course, there is a district attachment, which used to be in my place, my time also. Idea is to expose them to stay in a district for 3 months to know the reality on the ground. You can choose the district of your choice, or you are allotted a particular district, because you need to know the country absolutely well. I mean, so these 2 years are a preparation for that. You are also, I believe, I heard that they are now also being taken to the neighboring countries, in terms of neighboring countries being the most important part of the training. They are taken for a month or so. And neighboring countries, without doubt, are the most important. They are India's absolute contiguous neighbors. And they are exposed on entire historical aspects of our relations. Not just Latin America, Africa, economic diplomacy, consular help, political relations, China, US, P5, and all the multilateral groupings, whether it's ASEAN or AU, KUS, AUKUS, or Quad, or WHO, UNICEF. So there is a huge amount of intensive proper training, and they also, I believe, nowadays are being oriented to attend some National Day receptions in Delhi, where they meet large gathering. And of course, all these trainings are more or less done in a very beautiful way. People do get to know a lot. And again, when they go abroad on a posting, first posting is a language posting.
No.
Like I went after my 2 years of training, I joined in 80 and 82 September, I went to Tokyo and to learn the language. That was my language. And I stayed there till middle of 1984. And then I went to Rangoon on a short posting of about roughly 2 years. And then I went to Venezuela. But I returned to Japan as Consul General later in the year 2000 to 2003. Now, my language did not go anywhere. I mean, language is like that. Once you learn a language, you are using, not using, it stays with you. When you come back again in the same milieu or same environment, it starts coming back.
Because I also actually think that if we learn the language and if we don't speak that often,
you
and
are out
after
of
few
practice.
years we are out of practice. So, like, do we forget after few years the language?
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's always because I just know Hindi and English.
Yeah. No, I'm saying it. Normally, you don't forget. It stays with you. Only thing is, you are not. It goes and gets deposited in your some memory bank somewhere. When you come back and you deliberately wish to bring it out, it comes back. It comes back. A little bit of brushing, some words, some.
But you understand and you can communicate
yes,
what you want.
In the country where that language is spoken, like for example Spanish, I would speak much more fluently in a Spanish-speaking people. Or moment I watch a TV and I know what's being spoken, all the words will become familiar. So this is normally that is how, if you have learned the language, it is your skill set. One of the skill sets. I mean you may not have brushed it or may not have used it very properly, but you would always be able to make use of it.
So how many languages do you know?
I speak 3 languages. Japanese, as I learnt properly, and there is an examination also conducted by Ministry of Defence.
Okay.
Only after that you are treated as having learnt the language well. It's written and spoken.
That's, you're a pro now. You are a pro in
yes.
this language.
Yes. And then I did Spanish also.
Okay.
Again, I wrote that exam, Ministry of Defence conducts. And Portuguese I learnt on my own, but I did not appear in the Ministry of Defence exam. There was not much requirement for me.
So, sir, how do you view the importance of multilateral diplomacy in India's interconnected world? And what role does India play in various international organizations?
Oh, yes. This is a very important question. As you know, the world has been going on even from before when India became independent. There has been groupings. A League of Nations was there even before India became independent, and then United Nations came in 1945. Now, with India becoming independent in 47, there are many more international groupings, and all these international groupings are there with a view to certain objectives, their own internal objectives. Sometime a very closed group, or sometime widely open. UN is a widely open group, and subgroups or closed groups are like NATO, or let's say ASEAN. ASEAN is 10 countries, NATO is 32 countries. They have all objectives. One has to become familiar, because normally India would not attend or join NATO, but these 32 countries have their own objectives, to tackle certain threats that they perceive from earlier, that time Soviet Union, now lately is Russia. Now, many of these groupings, whether it's a UNESCO, UN bodies are fine, but nowadays what is happening is that many of these international organizations, they are losing out on their effectiveness, or in terms of converting their targets and objectives in a dispassionate and objective manner. uniformly in all countries. Of 193 countries, there are roughly 45 or 50 countries which are island countries and very small countries scattered all over. They do have their own ocean group countries kind of a thing. Again, with a view to not allow development to take place. Development means carbon emission, because seawater rise, and many of these island nations are unanimous in their objective that water levels should not rise, and therefore the greenhouse gases should be controlled. Now, this runs into complete conflict with our India's own development objectives. Similarly, there is another grouping called UN Forum for Climate Change, for Climate Change Conventions, UNFCCC. Last year in December, it took place in Dubai.
Okay.
Now, there again, developed countries are saying that greenhouse gases are causing too much of dislocation and havoc, and developing countries should not do fossil fuel, which includes coal, petroleum. Now, this is again in direct opposition to what is our own strength. Our own strength and the largest resources is coal. We are today one of the 2 or 3 largest coal producers, and we are not so much having petroleum or oil. We are 80% importing, oil. And so our power projects or electricity have to remain coal-fired. Now, our diplomacy is not entirely Ministry of External Affairs alone. The Ministry of Environment and Forest. Now, this is the example how another ministry which has the mandate and the Ministry of External Affairs together in Dubai were able to successfully change the final consensus draft or the agreement from fossil fuel resources to be used, not to be used down, but used away. Away means it's a gradual process of reducing. Now, earlier, the intention of the Western Bloc was to decline, fossil fuel uses to be declined, to be brought down. So, from brought down to be brought away. That was a kind of a success of Indian diplomacy, which gives India some more breathing time, another decade, 2 decades, to do its economic development. Now, you see, when we are now reaching these stages, per capita emissions, we are the lowest. We are one of the lowest. But the entire quantity, the Western Bloc has already done its development. It has done all the greenhouse pollution emission in the earlier, before our independence. Now, it just happens to be that we were under British colony and we didn't have that kind of a cloud. So, developing countries here, China, India work together, and many other global South countries. Look, this is our time, this is our decade, this is our age to continue our economic development, do our electricity production, power production and road infrastructure. How can you say that you don't use and use more expensive ones? So this is where there are direct conflicts, and this can be seen through. I mean, I gave just one example. Idea is that many of these situations, one has to remain aware. But multilateral groupings are there. They do not have a direct, heavy, strident impact on the country or your country's overall welfare. But they do have importance. They do have importance. Of course, the bilateral relations are much more important, I mean, where you do one-to-one. Like today, in neighboring countries, one-to-one relations of India, whether it's Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Bangladesh, or even with China and Japan and let's say Russia and US. These are one-to-one dealing is most important in terms of you are conveying the government's wishes or government's plan or what is your government's agenda. But that government also looks at you that are you going to be my collaborator, my partner in serving their larger objectives. So it's again geopolitics. I come to a geopolitics. Any candidate, any person, any Indian diplomat has to have a good understanding of what's going on. Who is bidding what? Who is trying to achieve what? And where do I fit in? How does India have its way? So presently, we are not in a situation where we are looking to have kind of a conflicts or conflictual situation. We are now more concerned and bothered with pushing our own economy, at least to the third largest stage initially, thereafter much higher. So this is our objective, Yeah. So this kind of objectives and targets will always have to be kept in your mind as a diplomat. And of course, the government has a fantastic way to keep feeding you with lots of confidential informations which come to you. What is the objective? Each ministry, each government, our government ambassadors receive a very large amount of feed and guidance, which is there. That is important to know, and one has to also keep up by public media. Nowadays, social media has become very, very crucial. That also plays a very important role in reaching out to the larger society at large. And as I was mentioning, Indian ambassadors and consul generals also reach out to the local society by explaining what is India, how is India a kind of a semi-federal structure, and societies, and the languages, so many languages, so many differences. And when you reach out to the professors and the universities, students, they all invite you very happily. Because the knowledge of India is not that widespread, A student in Kenya, where I used to give lectures.
So is it like just we Indians talk about our country abroad, or it's a topic of discussion? Like
it can be that also. It can be a topic of discussion also. But you begin with explaining how democracy is working in India, or what is the state of affairs of the media, independence of media, or how the judiciary. I remember in Kenya, the Chief Justice of Kenya approached me through an intermediary, and I had a meeting with him, and he brought his entire colleagues, all 9 of them. I was so impressed, and he was in total awe, and he was impressed with Indian judiciary and some of the very renowned legal luminaries of India. And he said, Mr. Ambassador, can you bring some of those books? And I did get them, those books,
Like which books?
Judgments, Supreme Court judgments, some of the books by some legal university professors of Delhi University. So, like the British model in Kenya and India, they do watch, but watching is one thing, and getting the real texts and the complete information is another. Also, I arranged a visit by the Chief Justice to India. So this is another way how the two institutions interact and relate. It is a great satisfaction when the entire judiciary meets our judiciary and they exchange. You are only a facilitator. You are trying to bring the two institutions together and then see how it can work. And it does work invisibly.
How it is impacting and how it is making a difference.
Big way. I remember the Chief Justice mentioning that some of the judgments of Indian Supreme Court are so good. They do copy that. They do get inspiration from that. So it is good to know such things,
It feels proud.
Proud, yeah. So that is the thing. You get to see, you meet, and you do interact with a large number of people all over the world, and it's.
So how was your personal life? It's a very demanding job, and having like personal life with this demanding job must be critical. So how did you manage all of that?
Well, my wife and I have 2 children, a boy and a girl. We always were together, and my wife had a stronger idea not to send our children to a boarding school in India, which is what is usually practiced. I had to yield at that time, and on the whole, I can say that it was not a bad decision. But a lot of families in our diplomatic service put the children in boarding school in India, whether it's Lawrence School, Mayo, or Doon School, or Ooty. But the schooling has been done very well by our ministry, and there are top schools in each capital which are listed on a panel, and government pays for that. So in English medium, of course, it's a very good. There is no problem. English medium countries have very good schools at the British O level, senior Cambridge, or A level, or American system, which is called IB, or IB or AP. And in many countries, American diplomats' strength are so large. The countries where English is not spoken, the American presence is so much that they have their own American school. Even British have also their school in many countries. So these schools do also allow children of diplomats from other countries. So generally an impression is there that the children of Indian diplomats don't do well. I would not agree with that. Of course, they don't go through the grind that happens in the Indian good schools. You know, the Indian boys, when they're boys or girls, when they rise up in Indian school, there's a huge peer pressure and competition. And they still succeed and they go up. When they come up on the top in India, they are top most of the time because the pressure competition is so much. The schooling is a little bit relaxed, but they do teach well. And IB program is one of the finest program at 12 level, just like A level of UK. And my son did A level.
Okay.
Sorry, he did O level and then IB. And then he went to study in USA. And my daughter did the same. From Brazil, she passed out, did IB, and she also went to USA. What happens, these schools where IB and American programs are done, the entire preparation is oriented towards children going to study in US, if you can afford, or UK. So you are able to manage to do that. But in a way, there are certain, you can look back and feel that the children have been a little bit Americanized in a way. But that is what seems to be now the movement in India. Most Indian children are also going to USA to study and become Americanized. Of course, America has one of the finest higher university, top level universities. Not everybody can compete to get admission in top Ivy League universities. If you are able to get in admission, that means you deserve to be there. You should be there. So it has been fine. My son is settled in London. And my daughter works for United Nations Environment Program in Nairobi, Kenya. So they are both married and happy. So we are now just me and my wife. We are living in Delhi, in Gurgaon, where we have an apartment and we are relaxed.
Chill, now chill.
Chill, yes. Thank you very much.
That's great, sir. It was really wonderful. And I got to know so much deeper about diplomacy. And I hope this would help many aspirants who look up to this job and they have more clarity after this interview. I really enjoyed it. It was amazing. And it was actually more honored. Like, I'm more honored. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.